Yay, that's
I
it.
can't hear you. Wait.
Oh, you are? You should. I hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Why am I at 90 degrees to you? Okay.
Now you're good. Yes.
Okay, I'll
Oh.
just hold the phone. I wanted to place the phone somewhere, but apparently if I do that, I go 90 degrees.
Thank you.
Dong.
Thank you so much. So I was telling my viewers that like it's a learning curve. I'm very new to this. I usually test with people beforehand, but since I saw you, you're always live and you're like so guys. So like she knows it. She's been doing this forever, right? I should have tested. We should have tested, but it's okay. Thank you. First of all, thank
You're
you for
welcome.
doing this. Second of all, I'm very happy you're here. I want my viewers to know that on Mondays, I always bring people that somehow inspired me. But you not just inspire me, you taught me a lot, as I always, I always call you my story coach. So you're my story coach. And although that, before I joined your story challenge, I thought that I'm very good. I was sitting on my story for a very long time, and I thought I'm very good at it, what I'm doing or what I'm doing. But what I've learned in that class was amazing. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Before I let you start because I want you to tell us your story. But before that, I want to ask you, tell me a story of your childhood, something that happened to you when you were a kid that stuck with you and made you who you are.
Lots of things happened. I have actually two of those stories. Um, you would see my camera shaking because I can't somehow
No, you're very good. You're
mount
really
it.
good.
Give me a moment. I'll
Okay.
just try and put it somewhere. No, this doesn't
I
work.
I love the view behind you. It's
I think,
beautiful.
thank you. I think I'll just try and hold it in my hand.
Thank you.
All right. So something that happened in my childhood and that made me who I am. There are two stories that come to my mind, and they are hugely responsible for the work that I do. One is I grew up in India, and it's a hugely patriarchal society. And therefore, even though I was a cherished daughter to my parents, just because of the environment I was in, as a girl, I always felt that I had to do more and be more
Be more.
to be seen and heard. And whatever I did and whoever I was just never enough. There was always the need to be more and to do more and achieve more. And even though there were no practically there were no opportunities that were denied to me, it just felt really hard to be in that space. So that is one reason that has contributed to the work that I do, because all that hardship towards being seen and heard made me understand what really happens when people are not seen and heard, and how it tries and keeps them small, and how they can go into hiding. So that's one story that comes to my mind. The second story is in fact very relevant to the current times, with the whole George Floyd unfortunate incident that happened in the US. And
Yes.
that is again connected to something similar, not quite, but similar. So in the environment that I grew up in, we had what I would say a very diverse, but a rather mutually exclusive society. Because diversity can be inclusive, it can be exclusive.
Exactly.
And so in my part of the world, people coexisted peacefully, but they didn't really connect. I mean, you could be friends with different people, but you couldn't be family.
I
So you
know.
see, there were boundaries. There were boundaries. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And people were different based on the faith that they followed, the color of the skin, the social status, their financial status,
I get that.
and the caste system. And so because of all these variables, especially the caste system, people were higher up in the hierarchy. I'm referring to a social hierarchy or lower down into the hierarchy. And people who are higher up were considered better, worthier, bigger people. And these ones were tiny, puny, not worthy people, that kind of a setup. And you know what? It doesn't take the brains of a genius to understand. That's just rubbish. I mean, that's my
Exactly.
view. Even though that was the normal social and cultural fabric of the country, of the environment that I grew up in, as a 10-year-old, I could see that was just plainly wrong. Pegging people at higher levels or smaller levels, implicit hierarchy, explicit hierarchy, calling people bigger, worthier, or telling them that they are tinier, punier, and deserve to stay there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a very strange dynamic to grow up in, because people who were higher up didn't see people or hear people who were lower down.
Exactly.
And after centuries, Elaheh, these people started believing that. They started believing what their place was.
Exactly.
And so when we don't see and hear the people, there comes a point wherein people stop seeing and hearing themselves.
Exactly.
And when that happens, we just stay small. We just stay petty.
Exactly.
And as an 11-year-old, I took the decision that I would not subscribe to this system. So I looked around and I could hardly see people who didn't subscribe to the system. And I said, okay, what I can do is I can stop subscribing to the system. And
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to make choices where everyone's equal, irrespective of the caste that they come from.
Exactly.
And so that's what I did. And now as a coach, I help people be seen and heard through their stories.
Exactly.
Because,
that's what you do, actually.
yeah, and it's so important for me because I just stand against the idea that people should go through the motions of life without being seen and heard. It's just not right.
I love that. And you know, the thing is, again, but you both of those things that you said, I can actually empathize. Like, I understand what you're saying, because we're very, very similarly culturally close, right? And one thing, that the first one, that being not being enough, not feeling enough, that's one of the things that I was, when I joined your group, like your story challenge, I was actually working on with myself. I'm my original client. I'm my first client.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really, really enjoyed and appreciated about you was that the feeling that you gave to all of us, that how enough we are. And that is that, I think, all the problems that we have, I grew up thinking I'm not enough. I was never enough for myself. I would be perfectly, like, I would, for example, my body would be like a sculpture. I was going to go on stage. I would look at myself and I would say, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, and in the outside I was strong. I was like, but inside I was never enough, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I actually, I really enjoyed about your whole class and your whole story challenge. And I can see that in you, that is your kind of your mission, to
Yeah.
make people understand, see themselves,
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other story you told me, that's actually it's very, very funny. I grew up with my grandma, right? And I was a little girl. So in Iran, like, Persians, they love light skin and light eyes, and
It's
they're
a
like,
fetish,
yeah,
isn't it? It's
exactly,
almost a fetish.
exactly. And as a little girl, I hated it. I'm very pale. My skin is really pale. I think I've been tanning forever, since I remember. Right. And I hated it. I was like, why do they do this? Why do they talk like someone who's like olive skin or darker skin is not as good as someone who's like white skin, right? And I think that's one of the things, because I grew up a rebel and a fighter, and everybody had like fake ID to go to club. I had fake ID to go to tanning salon, because I wanted to show everyone, like, no, it's all the same. You don't need to be like light skin. So I totally understand. Now, thank you for sharing. Now, please tell my viewers, tell me about your story, because it's an amazing one.
Okay. So what's my story? If I make it to the other side of cancer, I would do everything in my power to live the rest of my life, no matter how long it is or short it is, as meaningfully and joyously as possible.
Oh.
That was the promise, Laha, I made to myself when I was diagnosed with the most aggressive kind of breast cancer. In the week of my 34th birthday, that was literally my birthday gift. Oh, and didn't quite know if I would still be here for the first 6 months. Yeah, I didn't know for the first 6 months if I would still be here. I had to go through the whole process of doing whatever I had to do to get through cancer and find out. And so during those 6 months of uncertainty and not knowing if I would really make it to the other side of cancer, I got up every single day and made this promise to myself that if I make it to the other side of cancer, I would do everything in my power to live the rest of my life as meaningfully and joyously as possible. And I think it was this promise, this hope that there could be light at the end of the tunnel, that there is going to be a tomorrow, that kept me going. And I was able to do whatever I had to do because, hey, I always understood, I always knew that not everybody who's touched by cancer really makes it out alive. I mean, that's just the grotesque,
Exactly.
brutal reality of cancer. And that can happen to anyone. And that is why I just said, if I get a second chance at life, I'm just going to make the most of it. And then after 6 months, I get the first yes, there is no more cancer in the body. So the treatment was still on, but I got the first, what we call as no evidence of disease. And that is like saying, yes, cancer free, yay! And when that happened, it was time for me to keep the promise I had made to myself. And so I had a long, hard look at my life and I said, okay, this whole thing about living, wanting to live meaningfully and joyously, how are you going to do it? Wanting something is one thing and actually creating that is completely different thing. And it doesn't happen just like that. I mean, there is work that needs to be done. And the gap was just too high between where I was and where I wanted to be. And so in my pre-cancer life, well, my life was pretty good. That's what I thought.
How were you? Like, because now you're going back and we're telling you are this transformed person and also
Yep.
transformation. I get that, right? And when we talk about something that happened to us, it's totally different from, but what was the question? What was the conversation in your mind? You know, like you're 34 years old and you like, how do you get the news of a cancer that you might die to that if I, to the hope? What was that conversation between the news and to the sentence that actually saved you in your head?
Okay, so when somebody gets into a crisis, people react differently.
Exactly.
They would either freeze, they would fly, or they would fight. These are the three natural responses that people typically respond.
Exactly.
In my case, my natural response is fighter.
So you were a fighter.
I was a fighter, always.
Exactly.
Always.
Yeah.
When I got the news, I knew that I would be diagnosed with cancer because I had just gone for a normal checkup because I had found a lump in my body. And my doctor, he's such an amazing doctor. Just by physical examination, he knew there was something wrong. And so that 15 minutes appointment literally turned into 3.5 hours. And we did the mammogram, the scan, the biopsy. And I understood. I just kept looking at the flurry of healthcare professionals that were coming in and going out of the room. And I knew something was wrong. And I asked them and they said, well, next week when you come, please expect to find cancer. And they don't say that kind of a thing unless they are pretty sure.
Of course.
Because of practical reasons and all the aspects associated with the healthcare. So I kind of knew, and I'd been reading and I'd been trying to prepare myself, ask all the right questions. So my natural response is take action, because yes, I am not shall I say, cocky enough to believe that nothing wrong will happen to me. I'm not
Exactly.
that person. I believe that anything can happen to anyone.
Exactly.
But I also believe that whatever we can do, we have got to do that. We have to take ownership for our life. And when it came to cancer, that's what I wanted to do. I couldn't control the prognosis. That wasn't in my hand. I would have loved to.
I
To be
know.
honest, I would have loved to,
I know.
but it wasn't in my hand. And that is why I just wanted to do what I could. And what I could do was to take action consistently.
That's beautiful. That, you know, that is one thing that I always tell everyone, not just my clients, everyone. We cannot control what's happening to us. Never. We cannot. That's out of our control. But
Yeah.
in every moment we can control how we react to the stuff that
Yeah.
is happening to us. So that is a beautiful thing. And again, for a 34-year-old, you know, it's just young. It's like too young to even, you know. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So then you are in your promise. What are you doing now? And you see the gap. So how do you
Yeah,
do
I
that?
see the gap. And I said one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to step away from the corporate world. Although I was good at what I did, I loved what I did. But now I was a changed person. I wanted different things. I wanted more out of my life. I wanted more joy. I wanted more meaning because I always knew about the transience of life, but now I had experienced it. There's something really, really powerful, Ilaha, about facing your own mortality, because then you know it's not just a romantic or philosophical concept. You know that it can happen. I mean, you
It's
have had
real.
those.
Is the
It's
Yeah.
real. It's real. Yeah. And I always knew that. I was never under the delusion that it couldn't happen to me. I might be. When people say that breast cancer is one of the cancers that's pretty curable, 80% curable, brilliant, which means out of every 5 people, one person dies. That's the reality, despite the
I
fact
know.
that it is one of the most curable cancers. But out of every 5 people, one person dies. That is the reality. And I was under no delusion that it couldn't be me. And yet I
Exactly.
just wanted to do whatever I could because I didn't want to leave this world with any kind of regrets.
That is beautiful. You know
That
what you
that was my
did?
view.
What you did is, like, again, we don't have to deny the what happening. We don't have to
Yeah.
deny everything that is happening, but we can deny to give that power. That's what you did. You knew
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, but you also knew that you don't want to give power to dying, because I believe the thing that kills us is not the virus. The thing that kills us is up here too, you know. So you actually,
Well,
you
I
are a
would
fighter.
say in my case, the disease could kill me.
I know, but like it could kill you faster if you weren't this person, if you had
Yeah.
given up, you know. I've
Yeah.
met people that gave up, totally gave
Yeah.
up, you know. So I know that, yeah, the virus is killing you, but you make it stronger if you give up, but you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I wanted to do what I could, and that was my way of taking control. That was my way of taking ownership. And yes, there was an element of control because I wanted to do whatever I could to have a favorable outcome. But I didn't want to go out without putting up a fight. That's
That's
how I saw
beautiful.
the situation.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So, in my post cancer life, I just said I'm going to walk away from the corporate world and focus on the work that brings me meaning and joy. And fast forward, and between then and this fast forward moment, there was a significant amount of time and a lot of help that I had to take from people, from professionals that could help, who helped me get that clarity. But eventually, I got to a point wherein I said, okay, I'm going to coach people because coaching is what brings me meaning, coaching is what brings me joy. And that's when I dipped into my passion of helping people be seen and heard. Because one thing that had happened when I talk about that gap and taking time to get to this clarity is that I was very grateful inside of me that I had
Exactly.
got this second chance at life. And yet I was in a state wherein I had to learn to walk again. And it just felt a very hard place to be in. It just felt very hard. And because it felt so hard, although I was grateful, I wasn't joyous in that moment.
I know.
Because as a 34-year-old, I could do very little. And it was like I had turned into this piece of vegetable.
You have to walk. It's just like becoming a child again, you know.
Yeah, literally learning to walk again. Yeah, figuratively and almost physically, because of the impact of the treatment.
Exactly.
And that really felt a very hard place to be in. It knocked off my confidence because my body had changed. I had changed mentally, emotionally. My relationships had changed. My financial situation was a big joke because I couldn't work. And I was so confused at what I would call at a spiritual level, because just faced my own mortality, and I'd started asking all these big questions that people start asking of themselves when they've just been through a life-changing event.
Exactly.
And in short, I was a mess. And it just felt hard. It just felt hard. And that was the time when I stopped seeing and hearing myself as this new person that I had become, and who was just trying to find that clarity in our own life. I knew that I wanted something different, and I had a vague idea of what it would be: more meaning, more joy. But I had no idea how to do that, how to get there. And the gap between where I was, the life as I knew it, and what I wanted, where I wanted to be, I had no idea how to bridge that gap. And every time I would stand in front of the mirror, I just didn't know this new person who stared back at me. And that knocked off my confidence, and I went into hiding. So again, an opportunity for me to really experience what it is like when somebody stops seeing and hearing themselves.
Exactly.
And so when in my coaching business, when I got the help I needed, I wanted, and I started moving forward, started rebuilding my life after cancer, I said, this is what I'm going to help people with, because I get it. When people aren't seen and heard, what happens to them? And so now that's what I do. I help people be seen and heard. I help them be fearlessly visible. That's how I like to put it.
That's what you do. That's indeed what you do. And the funny thing is, again, I personally, that's why I asked in the beginning, whenever I want to know someone, I always ask them about, tell me something about their childhood, because I believe, not just as a person, as a coach now, I believe whatever we decide who we are in a very, very early age.
Yeah.
And my job now, again, as a transformational coach, is that to go back in my foundation and found my own cracks and fill it up.
Yeah.
But a lot of things, a lot of the person that I am, even the person that I am today, that I think that I've totally transformed from what I was a year ago, a lot of things happened to us because of our childhood. You know, you decided you were this person that grew up thinking you're not enough and you have to be enough. So your goal was to, and that saved you. That kind of mentality. That's what you know. You were a fighter. You grew up a fighter. You grew up someone who wanted to be more, do more, right?
Yeah.
And I have one question. I was listening to your story before, and you know, although that my story, I'm not a cancer survivor, but like when I was listening to you, but you know, when I was listening to you, the thing that I went through for a decade, and I look at myself as someone who actually survived the cancer, and that cancer was me. That cancer was my brain, because again, I lived the life of a victimhood, blaming someone else. But after going through what I went through and sitting by myself and looking at myself, take a look at where I am, where I want to be, and the gap, and what I've done to myself. And that cancer was my brain, right? And again, I'm very, very, very delusional if I think I've healed completely. I set up this journey to heal myself, not to fix myself, to heal myself, right?
Yeah.
But there are, like, again, I was listening to you, and I was just, it came up because, to be honest with you, and this is with pure honesty, there are times that I'm scared. I'm so scared of, what if I go back, I still have nightmares, or there are
Yeah.
things that scare me. Do you get that? Is it like, is that time that you're like, you get scared that what if he comes back? And if so, how do you talk to yourself? How do you calm yourself down, and how do you, proceed?
Well, my view is, and this is just my humble view, that if somebody is on this journey of personal transformation and they say they aren't scared, they are probably just lying.
Oh,
That's
okay.
simple bullshit.
Good, good.
So if you're feeling scared, that's part of the process. I like to say, as a coach and an individual, that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it
Do
anyway.
anyway, yeah.
Courage is feeling the fear and still moving ahead and not letting that fear stop us. That's what
Exactly.
courage is. So if somebody is saying they aren't scared at all, well, they are probably not pushing their boundaries, as in comfort zone yet. Or they're just plainly lying. They're just bullshitting.
You know,
Let's put it that way.
to me, I totally get it. That's what I always say. To me, I look at fear like a cobra, and you can never kill the cobra of fear. You have to tame it.
Yeah.
But what I personally do, I'm just like, again, I'm just like, every time I get scared, I go back and I find the reason. What are the reasons? And I try to find more cracks that I have to like heal or fix. But again, that was the question that I asked. Like, what do you, how do you talk to yourself? You just say the thing that you told me, you say it to yourself, that is okay. It's okay to be scared. It's okay that.
Yes, it's definitely okay to be scared. That's a given in my case. And anyway, in the world of cancer, you never really officially get an all clear.
Exactly.
It just means that we can't find in the current scan. That's what it is. And there's always a possibility that it can come back. And I know that. And therefore, I know that I must not take life for granted. Well, actually, nobody should take life for granted.
Exactly.
It's just that
You
until
look
we
at it another way, you face it because we all know we're gonna die. The thing is, we all know we're gonna die, but we don't act like it. We don't act like that. The next moment you just can vanish, like die, right?
But, and we don't have to live in fear of that.
Exactly.
But what it has done to me, the whole cancer episode, it's not that I live in fear and think, oh, it might just come back and I'm going to die. So what is the point?
No, you enjoy more. You enjoy
oh
your
my
life
God,
more.
just make the most of the time.
I know.
And every time I get my annual scan right, or I have plenty of scares. That's part of the cancer equation. At least one scare during the year and an annual checkup. And when everything just comes fine, I say, yay, another year.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I think acknowledging that fear is part of the equation keeps us human. It keeps us compassionate towards ourselves. And I would say that's the beginning. The second thing is to really understand what is it that triggers that fear.
Exactly.
Because all of us have triggers, and they're different triggers for different people.
That's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it is really, really important to understand what our triggers are so that when they happen, we can notice them and we can just be kind to ourselves and not give ourselves a very hard time. Exactly. So I'll give you a very simple example. In the world of cancer, anniversaries are a big thing. And they are such a big thing that when somebody, a survivor, would go to the hospital for, let's say, their annual checkup, a lot of them start getting symptoms. And they would get things like motion sickness and pain. All that stuff happens. I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to some people. It's like our bodies remember all that trauma and that pain. Exactly. And the emotional load is just so high. So it's important to understand why that is happening so that when that happens, you can just cut yourself some slack and not say, oh, there's something wrong with you. and you are such a wimp that you can't manage it yourself. That's not the whole point.
That is beautiful. Yeah, I've learned to become my own mother. Just like have compassion for myself.
Yeah.
I'm being nice to myself. That's it. Like that's a process.
Yeah.
And you said it beautifully. So now I want to talk a little bit about your coaching challenge. Parul has this group in Facebook that is the story challenge. I'm sorry, it's the story challenge, and I got to know her through another friend that I met actually in another convention, and it's just like everything. I was looking, and when you're ready, when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right?
Yeah.
So, and this story challenge, guys, she has this story challenge. I want to let you talk about it, but it's amazing. It helped me a lot, and I believe we all have the story, like the same thing. I believe we are born with a dream, and we have to build that dream. But all of us has a story, and one thing I suggest you all to at least try this out. So I want to let you talk about your story challenge. Tell me.
Okay, so Story Challenge is a free event. It's a 5-day event. It doesn't mean that it runs the entire day for the participants. I'm the only person for
Yeah.
whom it's a full day event. Because last week somebody got really worried. Are you asking me to give 5 days
I know.
from a working week? A week? I said no. I'm going to give 5 days. So it's a 5-day challenge wherein you get daily tasks, and the tasks are about 30 minutes. So that's the kind of time commitment we are looking at. And on this challenge, I help the participants find their story. So if somebody asks you the question, what's your story? Elaheh, what's your story? Elaheh, you asked
Exactly.
me, Parul, what's your story? Instead of faffing around and waffling and, oh my God, where do I even start responding to that question? I help them find a concrete story that they can use over and over again to share as their message. And there is a process to it, and there are daily tasks. And on the 5th day, you actually go out and share your story. You have the first version of your story ready. Why? So that you can go out and share your story in the form of your business message. Because when we share our story, every time we share our personal story, we let our walls down and we let our audience into our world. And that is why when we share our story, that's the most intimate, the most vulnerable, the most personal kind of business message, or actually any kind of message, when we can possibly share. And a lot of people in this world don't understand that they can build their business through sharing their personal stories, which are unique to them.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I'm doing.
Exactly. That's what you're
And
doing.
yeah, and I just help people find their story so that they can go and share it and really attract their kind of people. I would say what you and I have here is very special, Laha, because we connect at a soul level. And I would say that that connection happens through our respective stories. And that's the power of a story. When you, as a business owner, or even if you work as a corporate employee, when you go and share your story, there are people who would either resonate with it or there are people who wouldn't. But whether they are your kind of people or not, that decision is made as soon as they listen to your story. And here is an example. When I shared with you right in the beginning that I said no to the caste system, what am I saying yes to? I am saying yes to the fact that everybody is equal, that
Exactly.
everybody is worthy. And that just because something has been going on for centuries doesn't mean that we have got to subscribe to it. That's what I'm saying. So in that moment, you can listen to my story and either say, yeah, she's my kind of person, and I would like to know her. Or you could say, no, that's just rubbish.
Exactly.
But either way, it doesn't matter which side you are on. But in that moment, as soon as you listen to my story, you know which side you are on. Either I am your kind of person or not. And likewise, when I connect with you, I know whether you are my kind of person or not. Because if you look around, if you just take a look at your work colleagues, even your family, your friends, how many conversations does it take to really understand what people value, what their personal values are, what their thoughts on such intimate, volatile topics are?
Exactly.
It takes hundreds of conversations, and a lot of those conversations don't even happen.
Exactly.
But here, through my story, in the first 5 minutes, I gave you such intimate information about myself.
Exactly.
And so I've shortened the entire process of getting to know you, and actually for you to getting to know me, because which is my agenda, because I'm a coach. I
Exactly.
share my story to build my business. So there's a very tangible outcome that I'm looking for.
And you're very good at it. You know, the thing is that's the thing, that 5 days, again, I was sitting on, behind me, you see those notes. I'm doing that. Like when a UX designer becomes a writer, right? So
Yeah.
I was sitting on my story for so long, but there were like one thing that I really enjoyed is that you explained this so good, and it made a lot of doors opened in my mind, a lot of locked door was like that. I know where to start. And my fear was, I wanted my story to be my story about me. I didn't want to make it about anyone else. I was like, I'm not going to give power to anyone else. And there was in your class, I really understood how to make my story and how to share what is what, and that was amazing. I'm forever thankful.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we share our personal story, it is our story, and that doesn't mean that we are being arrogant here. There's nothing about arrogance here, but the fact is that if you look at it, Elaheh, we really don't have any right to bring anyone else and expose them to the world. And so the only person that you can share and talk about is yourself.
Exactly.
And that's the most sensible thing to do. And that is why your personal story has got to be about you and only you.
Exactly. When is your challenge starting this time?
Oh, Monday. Next Monday.
Monday.
Okay, yeah, 22nd of June.
I will add the link to your challenge in this video. After we're done, I will ask you to add it there. And then how can people find you? Probably through that challenge,
people
right?
can find me. Yeah, people can find me on Facebook. People can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Parul Banka, and they are also welcome to join the story challenge. Come and have this joyous story ride. It's not always easy. It's intense, but it's totally worth it, especially if you are a business owner or a coach.
No,
it's going to be worth it.
I think all my new Dream Builder coaches would love that. I will actually share this video there too. So, but it was amazing. Thank you again, Parul. Thank you so much for doing this. And I just want to ask you one thing. I know that before we go, when my whole program is about happiness.
Yes.
First of all, I'm a happiness coach, first of all, first of anything. And I know it's impossible to always be happy. That's like, but what I want you to know, I want you to tell me, what is the conversation in your head when you're not happy? How do you get from a place that is less happy or no happy or even low? How do you get yourself back? How do you talk to yourself?
I think the first step is giving ourselves permission to not be happy, because how I like to say is, whatever we believe, they're nothing but stories. Some people may call it thoughts, some people may call it beliefs, but hey, we didn't come with any of this stuff when we were born. They were all stories that we learned through our life experiences, through our social conditioning, through our cultural conditioning. And every story that runs in our head, we don't have to believe it. It's not the universal ultimate truth. It's not the law of gravity. And so it's just a story in your head. And so every time you feel that, oh, I'm not being positive enough, I'm not being strong enough, I'm not being clever enough, it's just a story here. And it's okay not to be clever, strong, whatever it is, whatever your version of not being enough is. It's perfectly okay to be that, because we are human beings here. And it's really important to recognize that we cannot be compassionate towards other people if we are not compassionate towards ourselves.
Exactly.
And we cannot find happiness in other things, in external things and external people, if we can't find that joy within ourselves. And this is not some philosophical BS I'm giving you. No, no. I've
No,
taken this journey, and
exactly.
trust me, what people try and do is they try and wait for that fabulous job or that fabulous career
I've been
or
there.
that business. Yeah, all of us have been there. All of us have been there. Or that relationship, or that body, or kids going to Ivy League colleges. That's when they're going to be happy. And guess what? Da da da!
Exactly.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, because unless and until we can get to a point wherein we find that joy and happiness within ourselves, it just keeps eluding us. So give
Exactly.
yourself permission, and when you feel not enough, just watch out that it could just be a story in your head. And if it is really a problem, for example, I want to be better at a certain skill and I don't have that skill, hey, come on, move your ass, do something about it, learn that skill.
Exactly.
You want a fab
Exactly.
body like Elaheh? Put in the work. Put in the work. Seriously. When it comes to fixing our skill gap, I would say that's the easiest thing to fix. That's what I was
Exactly.
speaking
Exactly.
about a couple of days ago with a friend, and she was going on and on about how her skills for what she wanted to achieve weren't enough. And I said, that's the easiest thing to fix.
Exactly.
Skills are, yeah, take action little by little, and you will make progress.
Exactly, exactly. That's what I always say. I always say I'm not a dreamer. I'm not only a dreamer. I'm also a dream builder,
Dream
because you
builder,
have,
yes.
yeah, you have to dream. If you just dream and sit there, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
I teach you how to dream, and then
Yeah.
we'll take action step to build that dream. That's how it's really simple. It's not
Yeah.
a magical thing that we do, but yeah. Thank you,
But
Parul.
it
Thank
is
you so
magical
much.
though.
It is, but it's not that magical, is it? We are all
There's no secret
magical.
formula. Yeah, it's simple action. It's clarity of thought, and taking consistent action in simple words.
Yeah, my mistake was that all my life growing up, I thought I'm magical. And once in a while, I would meet someone that I thought, oh, that person is magical, so let's be magical together. And it was always disappointment
Yeah. Yeah.
till I found out that there's nothing special with me, and we're all magical. We're all special. We just need to
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. We are all magic.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Farul. Thank you for doing this. I love you so much. And
Thank you
I
so
will
much for
share
having
this.
me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I will share this on Facebook, and I will also, you guys, you can watch this on my YouTube channel. And probably if you have a YouTube channel, I will put it up there too, your link there too, so people can come watch, because I know you have a lot of videos on your YouTube channel. It would be really good. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much
Have
for
a
having
nice
me.
day. Mwah. Love you so much. Bye, guys. Bye.